The Cincinnati Reds finally got one right, locking down Chase Burns for a long, long time.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up? I'm Jeff. He's Steve. And on today's Locked On Reds podcast, a little bit later on, the Reds are signing people now, and we know who should be next. You probably do too. We'll talk about Sal Stewart a little bit later on in today's show. In just a few minutes, we will look at why the expectations just got so much higher, tougher, harder, whatever you want to say they are, on Chase Burns. But I think that he's ready to rise to that challenge. But we will begin with this brand new contract for Chase Burns because he is now signed to 7 years. He got the same guaranteed type of money. I think I saw that Homer Bailey got. And so it ties the Reds' number one guaranteed contract to a pitcher. He is the youngest pitcher, however, to get this much guaranteed money. Reds signing this in his first real full season of Major League pitching. And Steve, this is absolutely the right decision. This is something that you and I have begged the Reds to do for years.
Yeah, this is one of those things that for you and I has been a no-brainer. For basically all of baseball has been a no-brainer, but we all know what that means with the Cincinnati Reds in this particular front office, whether or not it's actually going to happen or not. So this was a very, very pleasant surprise. Look, we've talked about Chase Burns all year being the ace of this staff. Some of that had to do just simply with his ability and the fact that he had a tremendous first half of baseball for the Reds this year. Some of that had to do with the single most important asset that he has had this year, which is availability, which is what Hunter Greene has lacked, which is what really has had us questioning his ace of the staff status. So for the Reds to go out and get this done, I think is tremendous. If you look at things on paper right now, Jeff, they have Hunter Greene and Chase Burns now locked up for a long time. Hunter Greene through 2029 with the team option, and now Chase Burns well into the 2030s, locked up with a controllable, very consistent way to plan financially amount of money. They don't want to get hit with what the Tigers got hit with Tarek Skubal. And I think that contract actually had a lot to do with this contract. You know, the Reds saw that. They saw that $31 million price tag that the Tigers got hit with. And you don't have to squint very hard to look at what Chase Burns is doing right now, to extrapolate that out over the next 3 or 4 years, think about what that arbitration number might look like, and think, man, this guy might get a $40 million arbitration ruling if we don't do something. So I love that the Reds were proactive with this. They got it done. Look, it's good for the Reds because it creates an era of control. It creates a known. Now they know what they're paying. I think it's good for Chase Burns. I've seen people push back and say, oh, well, he could have gotten so much more money. And, pitching and pitching arms, you never know. And from a pitcher standpoint, I think it's good for Chase Burns that this is out of the way. He doesn't have to think about it. Yep. It's locked up. He's going to make a fair bit of money. Yeah, he's not going to get that $40 million ARB contract. But if something happens, if he has an elbow, if he has a Tommy, if he has a thing, he's still going to get paid. So he can go out there and put maximum effort all the time, 110% to help the Cincinnati Reds win and not have to worry about getting injured because he's taken care of financially, guaranteed. And that's the key to all of this. So I think it's a win for the player. I think it's a win for the team. It's a win, God help us, for this front office and ownership group a little bit.
He needed one.
And I'm excited. Let's go.
Yeah, that's a group that really needed a win, was the front office. But I mean, the Reds buy out 2 years of free agency from him because, as I read multiple sources confirming this contract does not actually begin until next year. So he finishes this year out on the league minimum, whatever, and then next year this kicks in. So it's 7 years from next year, goes all the way through 2033, which is a big win for the Reds to buy out 2 years of free agency. But it's a big win for Chase Burns because dude wasn't going to be arbitration eligible until 2029. So he was going to be making, whatever escalators get added on to where he finishes in different awards, and because of his all-star appearance and, whatever more might get tacked on there. Sure, it was going to go up from the league minimum right now. And then, of course, the CBA is probably going to raise the league minimum too. But he's going to be making a lot more than league minimum starting next year. And I think this is also a little bit of a promissory note, if I could go in that direction and say this, because the Reds are going to be doing some load management with him the rest of the year. And I'm pretty sure any player or any person for that matter in their line of work, if their job is going to be kind of messing with their schedule a little bit, they need some guarantees and they need some good feelings from the organization to kind of go through that and not think, all right, what are you trying to do here? The Reds aren't trying to do anything. They're just like, look, we're trying to take care of you. Let's take care of you financially right before we take care of you physically and make sure that you're good to go for the long haul, because we want this dude to be this way for several seasons now. And I mean, we're going to talk about at the end of this, if for some reason he does not go past that 7-year mark, then that's 8 good years of Chase Burns that we can hope to get in this rotation. And that in and of itself is a big win.
It's a huge win. And you know, I don't want to play the game that everybody likes to play here in the city of Cincinnati is, well, yeah, but they're going to trade him. Oh, they're going to, you know, they're not going to, but you know,
hey, no options, no team options that
no
they were
options,
inevitably going to.
They bought out 2 years of his free agency years at an incredible value. If he's pitching like he is now, he's pitching then. Under the Tampa Bay model, God help us if Nick Krall's still here in 8 years, but under the Tampa Bay model that they're supposed to be running, talk about a trade piece. Talk about a restock piece. A cheap controlled Chase Burns with a year of team control that you can trade later. Look, this is.
Let's get to that in 2030.
Yeah, I'm just saying that. I'm just saying, evaluating this deal from a team standpoint, evaluating this deal includes that, and it's a big win for the Reds. And it's still a big win for Chase Burns, because all of the things that you just said, all the things that I just said a second ago, I'm excited. I think Chase Burns is going to push to be the opening day starter next season, whenever that might be. I think that Chase Burns and Hunter Greene are going to be going head to head for the conversation of who is the leader of this staff, who is the ace of this staff, who is pitcher number 1. Well, if you want that title, you better be available and you better go out there and earn it. And I love the dynamic that could create. Maybe one of the things that Hunter Greene has lacked during his time here in Cincinnati is somebody to really push him, somebody that can really have a legitimate claim to stand up and say, whoa, boo-boo, this is my team. I'm the guy around here. Chase Burns can be that guy.
Well, because and the argument for years was, well, Nick Lodolo is pretty good too, but Nick Lodolo has the same durability questions, albeit from a totally different source. But you know, hopefully we see durability be one of Chase Burns' like cornerstone traits for years and years to come. The other part of this, though, Steve, is something that we have wanted the Reds to do for a long time. And that is like, because I saw people saying, don't you think it's a little early to be signing a contract extension? No, the Milwaukee Brewers are doing it. Yeah, the Milwaukee Brewers are doing it before guys are called up. They've already signed a guy who I think, I cannot remember if they either just called him up or they're about to call him up, an outfielder named Luis Lara. They signed him before they called him up. They signed Cooper Pratt, a guy who's playing shortstop and middle infield for him right now, before he was ever called up. They signed Jackson Churio a couple of years ago before they ever called him up. And if the Brewers are doing it, then the Brewers are right, because that's just how this seems to be going here. And if the Reds aren't doing it, then why not? And so finally, they're getting into this. But like, even just looking around the rest of the league, Steve, and this is something that we'll talk about here a little bit later on when we get to the Sal Stewart of this all. I mean, the Pirates, they locked up Connor Griffin before he was called up to a 9-year, $140 million deal. The Tigers called up Kevin McGonigal, and he played for not even a month, and they signed him to an 8-year, $150 million deal. And even the Mariners, before they ever called up Colt Emerson, their shortstop prospect, they gave him an 8-year, $95 million contract. There's all these guys that are signing right now because teams understand if you get them right now, you can offer that team control. You boost up their earning power before they ever hit arbitration. But then after arbitration, you know what they're making, and it's not going to break your bank because you can plan that far in advance. I've wanted the Reds to do this for so long, and I hope that they continue it.
No, this was the right move. And, I tongue in cheek, I said, they almost waited too long, but they almost waited too long. There's a scenario here where Chase Burns gets this offer and says, have you been watching me pitch? I'm going to get $40 million in arbitration. I mean, I really think there was probably a very in-depth, long conversations between Chase Burns and his agent and his representatives to talk about, safety and stability versus how much are you willing to risk to get that maximum payday? Because Chase Burns, there is a lane here that is not very hard to see that gets him a maximum payday. So I love how this shook out. I also love with the uncertainty of the CBA negotiations upcoming. This is a contract now that's done. It's going to be grandfathered into whatever the new rules are. They've got Chase Burns locked up. This is a 7-year deal. That might be something that goes away under the new CBA, depending on how all of these things shake out. So for me, this was the right deal at the right time. It's the Reds changing the way they do things in a positive direction. You're absolutely right. You said this a couple weeks ago. Look at whatever the Brewers are doing and do that. Well, this is what the Brewers are doing, so do that. So this is a win. I'm excited, in a season that we haven't had a whole lot to be excited about, in a season that we haven't had very many things to point to and say, well, at least they're trying something different. The Reds finally tried something different. But Jeff, with this contract, with this money, with this deal comes a new set of challenges, a new set of expectations for Chase Burns, and he's going to have to rise to meet them.
Before we get into the rest of today's show, it's time for the Everyday Icon presented by Stance. As the official stock partner of Major League Baseball, Stance knows greatness isn't built in a single moment. It's earned over time through consistency, preparation, and showing up every day. That's why each week we're recognizing one player whose performance embodies the same qualities. This week, we're looking at Chase Burns. I mean, who else? He just signed a big contract extension, but did you know he leads the Reds in wins above replacement this year? He's been the team MVP, period, plain and simple, all throughout 2026. Absolutely deserves the big-time contract that he just signed, and looking forward to many more years with Chase Burns at the top of the Reds rotation. The Everyday Icon is presented by Stance. Check out the Icon collection from Stance. Premium comfort, performance, and durability designed for whatever your day brings. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for 20% off your purchase. Stance, the official sock partner of Major League Baseball. Learn more at stance.com. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand and the official hair growth partner of Major League Baseball. What really makes Nutrafol stand out is that it's not just a one-size-fits-all approach. It's designed to fit into your routine while addressing the root causes of thinning with personalized solutions. I like that Nutrafol acknowledges that everyone's situation is different. Having formulas designed for different stages and needs makes a lot more sense than expecting the same product to work exactly the same for everyone. I mean, we're all individual people here, and Nutrafol understands that. Find out why Nutrafol is the only hair growth supplement brand trusted by Major League Baseball. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB at Nutrafol.com for $10 off your first month subscription.
You're already an everydayer. You already live this team every single day. Elevate your game and join the Everydayer Club. LockedOnPodcast.com/everydayer. $5 a month, $50 a year. That's going to get you ad-free Locked On Reds over in the audio feed. It's going to get you access to Jeff and I and some exclusive hangouts we've got coming your way. We're going to have all that rolled out for you probably by the end of the month. So get in on the action right now. Ad-free Locked On Reds over in the Everydayer Club. The link is down in the show description. All right, Jeff, with these kind of contracts, with being a player that the statement immediately follows is largest contract ever, biggest deal for the youngest player, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, there comes a new set of expectations. And with a player like Chase Burns and the way that he's performed in the first half of 2026, it really is hard and it's really a little unfair to say, well, we're going to raise those expectations now. Yeah, you went out there and exceeded some of our expectations. You went out there and did some things that nobody saw coming, or at least didn't see coming this quickly. But guess what, Bucko? It's time to step it up because you're getting paid now. However unfair that might be, that's probably exactly what's going to happen with Chase Burns now that he's signed this deal.
Steve, who's the best Reds pitcher ever?
Ever? Like ever? Oh man, that's a
Is it
question.
Jose Rijo? Is it
it's Jose
Mario
Rijo,
Soto?
it's Johnny Cueto, Mario
Johnny
Soto,
Cueto?
Luis Castillo? It's that lane of pitcher. The problem is nobody's ever here long enough to cement the status of Cincinnati Reds' great starting pitcher.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really where the challenge comes with Chase Burns is that, I mean, if he just keeps up the level of production that he has had this season for the majority of his contract, and that's not unreasonable to think. I mean, he's going to be 31 whenever this contract expires. It's not like he's going to be at the end of his career. He's still going to be in the middle of his prime. And so if he can just build on this, keep this up, I think we're talking about that. And look, I get it. We talk about this a lot. When a guy comes up and we ascribe these expectations to him, we did it with Hunter Greene, did it with Ellie De La Cruz, did it with all these other guys. The money now says, yes, do that. Put those expectations on him. And I think that now we are looking at the kind of guy that he's got to keep this going. And I find this intriguing because I kind of want to know what we determine to be the best pitcher ever, Steve. Because do you know the best pitcher in Reds history? Because do you know off the top of your head who leads the Cincinnati Reds franchise in wins above replacement for a pitcher?
I don't have any idea.
He's a guy who always makes me hungry. Noodles Hahn. Noodles Hahn has wins above replacement of 45.6. And then you go down, you got Epa Rixey, you got Dolph Luque, you got Bucky Walters, you got Frank Dwyer. The first guy you get to who's even in the realm of like, what modern pitching even kind of looks like now is Jose Rijo. Number 6, 36.4 WAR. And he did that in 10 years as a Red. Steve, I think that as long as Chase Burns keeps up the level of production he's got right now, he can match or beat that in this contract. So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about Chase Burns possibly being better than Jose Rijo, and that's kind of where the bar is.
If Chase Burns just stays exactly as good as he is right now, if he doesn't get any better, doesn't get any worse, over the course of the 8 years pitching here that he'll have with this contract, he'll have a 40 WAR accumulation. That's without ever getting any better at all. Chase Burns is going to
without adding a third pitch, and he's definitely he's going to get better.
So that number is going to get exceeded. He'll probably, you're right. With that measuring stick, he probably ends up the highest wins above replacement pitcher in Reds history over the course of this 8 years. Because I mean, you look at what he's doing right now, Jeff. I mean, if we just look at this season, he's currently sitting at a 10.3 strikeouts per 9. He's currently sitting at 3.2 walks per 9. I think that walk rate will come down. I think that strikeout rate will go up. That's going to improve his numbers. He's currently, in 18 starts for the Reds this season. Believe it or not, man, he's doing so good. 11 wins this season. He's got an opportunity to get to 15, 16, 17 wins this year. He's going to amass a win total. That's going to raise his WAR. I'm ready to lean into this ace thing, Jeff. I'm all ready to start the Chase Burns for opening day starter campaign, Chase Burns #1 big dog of the staff campaign, Chase Burns ace of the staff campaign. I'm all in. Cincy shirts, I need a shirt. I need something for Chase Burns being the ace of this staff.
And it's interesting you mentioned like the win-loss thing. Like as far as Red's career goes, Don Gullett leads all pitchers with a 674 win percentage. Right now, Chase Burns has 73, 733 win percentage. Now, that's in 18 games. Don Gullett did it in like 135 games or something like that. So he's got a ways to go before he matches that point. But then you also look at another thing, and we talk about pitchers a lot in this vein. You mentioned strikeouts per 9. Do you know which Reds pitcher leads in career strikeouts per nine?
As a starting pitcher?
Yeah.
Not a reliever? Yeah, I'm not sure.
His teammate, Hunter Greene, 11.3. And so he's looking at the dude that, as much as we do say ace, and I think I'm on the same train. I would love to see him be honored as the opening day starter next year. But as much as we see him on the same vein as Hunter Greene, he's also looking at the dude who leads in strikeouts per night. And also, and this isn't a stat that we go too crazy on, but career hits allowed per nine, Hunter Greene also has the lowest hits per nine of any career Reds starting pitcher at 7.04. So there's a lot to live up to here, even just with his teammate. There's a lot to live up to here when it comes to the history of Reds pitching. But that is always a question, though, right? Like when you talk about who is the best pitcher in the history of the Cincinnati Reds, there are different indicators. And like everybody tends to say Jose Rijo because he won a World Series. And then like you talk about, you know, Don Gullett was on World Series teams. You had Gary Nolan, you had Jim Maloney, like guys back then. But there's also that asterisk of that was before pitching really became what pitching is now. And even thinking about the career leader in WAR of Noodles Hahn. Noodles Hahn did this back during the dead ball era. Now, it's funny. He didn't do it in like 25 years. He actually only pitched 7 years as a Cincinnati Red, and he got 45.6 WAR. But that was just such a different game back then that it's really hard to compare them apples to apples. But Chase Burns has some high expectations. And honestly, I kind of think he's on the right path to accomplish them.
Yeah, and that 7-year mark seems to be the magic number around here. Not a lot of pitchers hang around beyond that. And, you know, Chase Burns is getting a year 8. Maybe this new CBA creates a scenario where Chase Burns is here for a long, long time. You know, when Joey Votto left the team and ultimately ended up retiring, we talked about the era of a career Red is over. And with this contract at this time for this player, and with a new CBA coming, maybe that's a not so fast, my friend, kind of moment. Maybe Chase Burns could be a career Red. Who knows? It's going to be fun to watch this shake out.
And something, and before we get into the next segment, this is a question just to ponder amongst yourselves, and maybe at some point we'll dive into this. Will Great American Ballpark be the only ballpark that he ever pitches in for the Reds?
That's interesting because I was just
7
watching
years down
about stadium. I know it could be very interesting to see how that shakes out.
But the other interesting thing is who's next? Because quite frankly, the fact that the Reds are signing people means they got to get looking at first base and get Sal Stewart a new contract like yesterday.
There's nothing like being at the ballpark and watching a baseball game live. And even though the Cincinnati Reds are, well, struggling a lot this year, there's nothing more fun than being down at Great American Ballpark. That's where Game Time come in. That's why there's the Game Time app. Jeff and I tell you about Game Time all the time. This is what we use when we are down at the banks going to a Reds game. Used this last week when I was in town. Jump on the app. You wait till close to first pitch. You watch those prices drop, and you grab your tickets and stroll on into the stadium. It's going to give you a view from your seat. If you've never been there before, what are you waiting for? It shows you exactly what it is you're going to get. You get zone deals so that you get the best price in a section, and the list goes on and on and on. 2 taps and it's done. No stress, no hidden fees, just great seats in minutes. That's what makes it so easy to decide on last-minute tickets to the game. Right now, the Game Time guarantee is going to take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply. Just create an account and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Support for today's episode comes from Indeed Sponsored Jobs. When you're looking for a new hire into your organization, getting it right is so important. Everybody knows the disruption that comes with making a hire and getting it wrong. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps eliminate all of that by connecting you with the right candidate at the right time to fill that need and keep your company moving forward. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners to Locked On Reds can get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support Locked On Reds by saying you heard about Indeed on this show. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs.
We invite you to keep the conversation going with us after the show is over. You can follow us on social media. I'm on X and on TikTok at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. Steve is on X at S. Offenbaker with 2 Fs. And Locked On Reds, the show, is at Locked On Reds everywhere you get your social media. All right, Steve, honestly, I will say this, and I kind of buried this a little bit, but I was surprised that the Reds actually signed this deal. And quite frankly, I think most in Reds country were surprised to see that the Reds actually knew that they could sign an extension for somebody this early. But the other part of me that was thinking about this was like, I thought new CBA meant we're going to wait until after the CBA dust settles to sign these extensions. Since that's not the case, go get Sal Stewart and sign him to a contract extension yesterday, because there are 2 guys who we deem to be like as close to untouchable as possible. Chase Burns, Sal Stewart. Neither one is a Scott Boras client. Go sign Sal.
Yeah, there's a couple things at play here, and the fact that we're not privy to the conversations that are going on behind closed doors about the CBA make this a little limiting, but I suspect that the Reds felt the freedom to make the Chase Burns deal because they have an idea of where the salary floor is going to go in these negotiations. And to your point with Sal Stewart, there's probably still room to get him done as well. I like the idea of locking those 2 players up before you get to the new CBA, because these contracts won't fall under the new rules for years and such. So you get those 2 guys locked up. You wait for the new CBA then to help you with the third guy that's been in this conversation all along, which is Elly De La Cruz. Scott Boras has already made it clear that he's not having his players sign any stinking deal that limits them from the opportunity to go talk about free agency. Now that could change with the new CBA, where talking to the team you're with, love the one you're with, baby, right? Because under the proposal from the owners, those teams are going to be able to offer more than you could get on the open market in free agency. So that helps the Reds with Elly. So you have to use the situations to your advantage. With these young guys, it makes sense for the Reds to try and get them done now. With Elly, whose agent is impossible, it makes sense to wait until the CBA is done and then come with the new set of information and be like, well, Scotty, have you changed your tune? So I can see a scenario now where, using the CBA as kind of a leverage device, the Reds could lock up all 3 of these dudes and still be within the budget that they're going to have to set for themselves.
That's kind of why I think this CBA negotiation is so nuanced, is because there's a lot of folks that are going to see it, and it's going to be advertised as owners versus players. It always is. This is owners versus Scott Boras. They are trying to limit the power that he has, and it's not because other agents just aren't good at their job. It's because other agents understand how to negotiate and how to do all this. Scott Boras has become so powerful as an agent that he dictates all terms of the negotiation. If he doesn't want to do it, then that ain't going to happen. And that's where we are with this. That's why we constantly have told you, don't go too crazy thinking that Elly's going to sign just yet. The Reds basically need the rules to change before they can even get Scott Boras to the table. Because if Nick Krall is trying to call Scott Boras caller ID is going to say, Cincinnati Reds, don't pick up. And so then he won't pick up because he knows he's not going to get what he wants. And that's got to change through the CBA. And that's why we talk about, it's not Elly just yet. It should hopefully be Elly soon, because hopefully the CBA allows them to at least have a little bit more negotiation leverage. But Sal Stewart's the kind of guy that you should do the same thing you just did with Chase Burns. Like, lock him up. I heard some grumblings, and of course nothing came about, but I heard some grumblings about 5 years and $105 million for Sal Stewart. I'm not as interested in that, though, because that doesn't buy out any free agent years. That would just be, making him feel good about his time here in Cincinnati. Give me 6 or 7 years on the contract, and then I'm happier about it because you buy out at least 1 or 2 years of free agency, and he's still hitting free agency at a prime age to go make his bag, to go get that bag. But I think ultimately, like, that's got to be the next guy that you lock up, and it's probably somewhere similar. I don't know if they get the years that I mentioned with like a McGonigal or a Connor Griffin or something like that, like 8 or 9 years. But if you get 6 or 7 for about that same average annual value, then we're talking about another big win for this front office.
Yeah, the thing that makes these deals make sense for the Reds is the buying out of a couple of free agent years. That's what they did with Hunter. That's what they've now done with Chase, and that's what they need to do with Sal. The advantage for the player is that if they have a bad year or if they slump or they get injured, they don't have to go through the arbitration process and take a less of a raise because they had a down year. Also, let's not underestimate the value of not having to go through the arbitration process. If you want a fun inside look at the arbitration process that's going to make you laugh your butt off, go jump into Jim Day's podcast's archives and find the first Sean Casey episode where he talks about going through arbitration with Jim Bowden. That is some of the funniest stuff you will ever listen to. But it also paints a very clear picture of what is expected of the teams to do during that process, what's expected of the players to do during that process. It is very adversarial, and it has the potential every single time to really create hurt feelings. If you want a recent example, look at what the team's relationship is now with Tyler Stevenson. Because they became adversarial, they went through arbitration, they fought each other, and Tyler wants nothing to do with this front office or this city after this contract, and it's very sad.
I don't understand why teams, and I guess they just get to a point where they feel like they've got to fight for the dollars and cents on the contract, but like there's got to be at bats that Tyler has throughout the year. He steps into the batter's box and maybe he's going through a bit of a slump and he's just like, this is exactly the kind of thing that they brought up in that arbitration hearing. And so he's got to go hit a bases empty grand slam to turn it around. And then he's struck out 3 more times. So I think that it's so counterproductive. It was created to get rid of the reserve clause, and it was seen as a big win for the union back when it started, but it has become such a divisive individual thing that I think we've seen this on a lot of other teams and with a lot of other players, that they go through the process and their entire view of the game just shifts because of the way that the business has moved about. So it would be a huge deal to get rid of the arbitration factor with Sal Stewart as well, to give him that confidence in the team. But yeah, I think that if you're not buying out at least 1 year of free agency, then I don't necessarily know that I'm that excited about it. Look, we talked about the fact that Chase Burns makes us excited. The fact that they signed that deal is exciting. As much as this season has just been a slog, that was good news, and that makes me happy for the future. This would make me so much more happier for the future if they sign Sal Stewart and they add that to the fact that they have Chase Burns. And then God forbid that they follow through on these rumors with Hunter Greene and end up trading him, because I feel good about having him for a couple of years. Like, it seems like different pieces are finally being set on this board here, and they can move forward with some good feelings in Reds country, which is what we've been begging for all year. Well, okay, since May 1st. Anyway.
We talked as recently as Tuesday about securing the core, and this was the first big step in that process. And that is where we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thanks, as always, for making Locked On Reds your first listen each and every day. We appreciate you being everydayers. We appreciate you being here. If you've not done so, click that subscribe button. Click that notification bell. You're going to get every single episode that Jeff and I have coming your way. You'll also get the postcast with Tim Daniel live after each and every Reds game. For the folks in the audio feeds, go check out Locked On MLB. 3 great shows over there for you. Sully's got you covered with Major League Baseball. Former Reds reliever Mike Stanton's talking ball from a retired entire player's perspective. And the folks over at MLB Game Night are watching every single game, every single night, so that you don't have to. For the video folks, we're going to send you over to Locked On's first ever 24/7 national YouTube channel, where all of the experts of the entire network are talking ball 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Jeff and I will be back in your feeds on Monday or sooner if something big happens, like, I don't know, signing Sal Stewart. We'll keep gathering up the news, the notes, the rumors, the reports, and the information, and keep you locked on Reds every single day.
You know, speaking of Mike Stanton, I think if you'd asked him to pitch in Great American Ballpark for 7 years, he'd have said no.
That could be true, but what I want to know is, where is my 7-year contract?
I think it's in the back.